Every year, millions of seniors quietly hand over money for debts they don't actually owe, and most don't even realize it until it's too late. Today, I'm going to expose the truth about 8 different types of debt that older adults often feel pressured to pay, but legally and morally, they don't have to. From old credit card balances to medical bills that were already written off, even loans that should have been erased years ago. I'll walk you through each one clearly. Some of these may surprise you, and knowing them could save you thousands of dollars and endless nights of worry. And here's why you'll want to stick with me until the end. The last 2 debts I'll share are ones most people never even think about, but they're also the ones that can protect your peace of mind the fastest. I'm Dr. Eli Morgan. After decades of working with patients over 60, I've seen how financial stress can break down the body just as much as illness can. That's why I'm here, not just to talk about health, but to help you protect both your wallet and your well-being. Item number 1, old debts past the statute of limitations. Imagine this. The phone rings and a stranger claims you owe money on a credit card you last used 15 years ago. Your stomach tightens, your heart races, and for a moment, you wonder if your retirement savings are about to vanish. But here's the reality most seniors never hear. Debts have a legal expiration date. It's called the statute of limitations. Every state sets a clock on how long a creditor can sue to collect an old balance. In some places, that window is as short as 3 years. In others, it can stretch up to a decade. But once it runs out, the debt may still exist on paper, yet legally, you can't be forced to pay it through the courts. Collectors know this, but they're betting you don't. And here's the trap. The moment you admit the debt is yours, or even send a token payment, say $20 just to get them off your back, that clock can reset. Suddenly, a debt that should have been long dead comes back to life, and the collector regains the power to drag you into court. I've seen this happen to men and women in their 70s who thought they were being responsible, only to find themselves facing fresh lawsuits. So how do you protect yourself? Here are 3 steps I tell every patient who sits in my office worried about old bills. Don't admit anything on the phone. If a collector calls, your only response should be, "Please send me proof in writing." Nothing more. Request validation. By law, collectors must provide written documentation showing the original creditor, the date of the debt, and the amount owed. Check your state's statute of limitations. A quick online search of your state debt statute of limitations can show whether that account is enforceable or not. When you follow these steps, something powerful happens. You shift from being the hunted to being in control, and here's the health connection. Prolonged financial fear keeps cortisol, your stress hormone, pumping day and night. High cortisol raises blood pressure, damages memory, and weakens your immune system. By refusing to be intimidated by expired debts, you're not just saving money, you're protecting your heart and your mind. So the next time someone tries to resurrect a balance from decades ago, remember, that debt belongs in the past, not in your future. Item number 2, medical debts already written off or sold. Picture this. You open your mail and see a hospital bill you thought was handled years ago. The amount looks unfamiliar, the dates don't match, yet the letter insists you must pay immediately. For many older adults, this sparks panic. But here's what most people don't know. In many cases, that medical debt was already written off by the hospital or sold to a third-party collector who has little more than your name and a number on a spreadsheet. Hospitals often decide a bill is uncollectible and remove it from their books. Instead of chasing it, they may sell the account to a debt buyer for pennies on the dollar. The problem for collectors is this. They rarely receive the full documentation of what you truly owe. That means they can struggle to prove the balance is legitimate if challenged. Yet, they count on fear. your fear, to push you into paying without asking questions. And here's another layer many miss. Nonprofit hospitals are required by law to provide charity care or financial assistance to patients who qualify. I've seen retirees in their late 60s discover they could have had tens of thousands in medical charges forgiven simply because no one told them to apply. Even years later, if the account was never fully validated, you may not be responsible for it. So, what can you do when one of these letters shows up? Demand written proof. Never pay, based on a phone call or vague bill. Ask for a detailed statement showing the original charges and adjustments. Ask about financial assistance. If the debt came from a nonprofit hospital, call their billing office and request information about charity programs. Check the status. Was it written off? Was it sold? If so, the collector may not have the paperwork to enforce it. Medical debt doesn't just threaten your bank account, it gnaws at your peace of mind. Stress over bills has been linked in studies to poor sleep quality, higher rates of depression, and even slower recovery from illness. By insisting on proof and exploring assistance options, you take back control. So the next time a medical collector tries to scare you into paying, pause, breathe, and remember, you may already be free of that debt. Item number 3, debt solely in a deceased spouse's name. Losing a partner is one of life's heaviest blows. Yet I've sat with widows and widowers who, in the middle of their grief, start receiving calls demanding payment for debts that never belonged to them. Collectors know this is the moment when people feel most vulnerable, and they use guilt like a weapon. Here's the truth. If the debt was only in your spouse's name and you never co-signed or guaranteed it, you are not personally responsible. In most cases, creditors must file a claim against the estate, not the surviving husband or wife. But many collectors won't tell you that. Instead, they use lines like, "Don't you want to honor your spouse's memory by paying this?" That is emotional manipulation, not law. So how do you protect yourself if those calls begin? Ask directly, was this account only in my spouse's name? If the answer is yes, you can stop there. Keep everything in writing. If a collector contacts you, insist that all communication be mailed, not spoken over the phone. Escalate if needed. If the harassment continues, file a complaint with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB. And please, let me emphasize, you are under no moral obligation to sacrifice your savings or retirement income to cover debts that legally ended with your spouse. I've seen too many older adults sink into depression because they carried financial burdens they didn't owe. Grief itself is enough for your body and mind to bear. Piling on false debt only deepens the wound. Protect your health by drawing a firm line, one that the law already gives you the right to draw. Item number 4, federal student loans that can be erased. It may sound strange, but more Americans over 60 are carrying student debt than ever before. Some co-signed for a child or grandchild, others went back to school later in life, and many still carry old balances that just never disappeared. I've met retirees who felt embarrassed, as if they'd failed, because they were still making student loan payments out of their Social Security checks. But here's what most people don't realize. Under federal law, certain student loans can be completely discharged. The most important option is called a total and permanent disability (TPD) discharge. If you can't work because of a long-term medical condition, you may be eligible to have your entire federal student loan balance wiped out. That includes direct loans, federal family education loans, and Perkins loans. All it takes is submitting medical documentation, often from your doctor or the Social Security Administration, to prove your condition. There's also the death discharge. If the borrower passes away, the federal loan obligation ends. For parents who took out Parent Plus loans to help their children, this discharge also applies if either the parent borrower or the student passes away. It may feel uncomfortable to talk about, but it prevents grieving families from being hounded for money that legally doesn't survive them. Now there is a catch. These discharges aren't automatic. You must apply, and the paperwork can be confusing. That's why so many people miss out and keep paying when they don't have to. Here's what to do instead. Call your loan servicer and ask specifically about TPD or death discharge options. Gather documentation from your physician or Social Security to back up your claim. Submit the application and follow up to ensure it's processed. The reward is not just financial. Studies show that older adults with unresolved debt are more likely to experience anxiety, memory problems, and even higher blood pressure. Removing that monthly payment doesn't just free up your wallet. It lightens your mind and protects your health. No one should spend their retirement years sending checks for a loan that could, by law, be forgiven. Knowing your rights can lift a weight you may have been carrying for decades. Item number 5. Debts discharged in bankruptcy but still collected on. Bankruptcy is one of the hardest financial decisions anyone can make. I've spoken with seniors who felt ashamed walking into court, yet they did it because they had no other way forward. When that judge stamps the order, certain debts are legally discharged, meaning they're erased. But here's the outrageous part. Some collectors keep chasing those same balances, hoping you don't know your rights. Once a debt is discharged in bankruptcy, federal law places what's called a discharge injunction on it. In plain terms, creditors cannot legally collect from you anymore. Not a phone call, not a letter, not a threat of court. If they do, they are breaking the law. Still, many older adults get calls years after their bankruptcy and feel pressured to pay again, not realizing the collector is bluffing. So, what should you do if this happens? Pull out your bankruptcy paperwork. Look for the schedule of debts that were included in your filing. Tell the collector firmly, this debt was discharged in bankruptcy. You are not allowed to collect on it. Escalate if they persist. Report them to your state attorney general, the Federal Trade Commission, or even consider talking to a consumer rights attorney. Remember, you already endured the emotional and financial toll of bankruptcy once. You don't have to relive it because of unethical collection practices. Carrying unnecessary guilt or fear after starting fresh can trigger anxiety and even physical symptoms like chest tightness or insomnia. Protect yourself by standing on the law that's already on your side. Item number 6. Small balances that aren't worth the cost of suing. Imagine getting a letter saying you owe $79 on an old utility bill. It's worded in bold print with phrases like final notice stamped across the top. For many seniors, that envelope is enough to ruin an entire day. But here's the reality. In most cases, collectors won't spend hundreds of dollars on court fees just to recover a balance smaller than the filing cost. Debt collection is a business. Agencies look at the math. If it costs more to chase you in court than the debt is worth, they often choose to let it go, sell it to another agency, or simply stop bothering. That doesn't mean the debt magically disappears. It may still sit in their system. But the practical risk of a lawsuit is extremely low. Now here's the twist. Some collectors know this, but they keep sending letters and calling anyway. Why? Because even if only a handful of people pay out of fear, the agency makes a profit. It's not about legal pressure. It's about psychological pressure. So, how should you respond to small balances? Don't panic. A tiny number on a page doesn't mean disaster. Ask for written proof. Always request validation to confirm the debt is real and that the amount is correct. Check your state's statute of limitations. Even a small debt may be too old to enforce. Here's the health angle. Worrying endlessly about a $50 bill can have the same physical impact as worrying about a $50,000 bill. Your blood pressure doesn't know the difference. Chronic stress over pennies steals the same sleep as stress over thousands. So next time a collector demands payment on a balance that wouldn't even cover a nice dinner out, remind yourself their math doesn't make sense, and you are not obligated to surrender your peace of mind over pocket change. Item number 7. Debts caused by clerical errors or system mistakes. One of the most surprising things I see in my practice isn't unpaid loans or overdue bills. It's debts that were never real to begin with. A wrong digit typed into a system, a hospital bill applied to the wrong patient, or a credit account linked to someone with a similar name. Suddenly, seniors receive calls about money they don't actually owe. Errors like these aren't rare. In fact, a recent government report found that mistakes on credit reports are one of the most common complaints filed by older adults. These errors can pop up years after the fact, often when you least expect them. And unfortunately, collectors rarely pause to double check the accuracy before they start dialing your number. So how do you protect yourself if you're targeted by a phantom debt? Ask for validation immediately. Collectors are legally required to provide documentation that the debt is real and belongs to you. Check your credit report. You're entitled to a free copy every year from the 3 major bureaus. Look for accounts you don't recognize. Dispute mistakes in writing. Send letters to both the collector and the credit bureau demanding correction. Keep copies for your records. I remember one retired teacher who came to me in tears because she'd been told she owed nearly $3,000 for a store credit card she had never opened. After a little digging, we discovered it was a clerical error. One wrong Social Security digit. Within weeks of filing a dispute, the debt vanished. Financial errors may not be your fault, but the stress they cause is real. Studies show that even short-term anxiety can raise stress hormones, leading to fatigue, headaches, and disrupted sleep. Don't let a mistake in someone else's system steal your health or your retirement income. Demand proof and make the record right. Item number 8, closing, your right to peace of mind. We've covered old credit cards, medical bills, even student loans and errors in the system. But the most overlooked debt of all is the one you carry silently, the weight of fear itself. Collectors thrive on intimidation. They know that if they can keep you awake at night replaying worst-case scenarios in your head, you're more likely to pay. Even when the law says you don't have to. Here's the truth. Once you understand your rights, most of their power disappears. You don't owe decades-old balances that expired under the statute of limitations. You don't owe medical bills that were written off or sold without proof. You don't owe your late spouse's debts or loans that should have been discharged. And you definitely don't owe money created by clerical mistakes. What you do owe yourself is peace of mind. Protecting your mental and physical health is just as important as protecting your retirement savings. Research has shown that chronic financial stress increases the risk of heart disease and weakens the immune system. On the other hand, people who take back control of their finances often see improvements in sleep, blood pressure, and overall well-being. So as you move forward, remember this. Knowledge is not just power, it's freedom. Freedom to hang up on a harassing call. Freedom to say, send me proof in writing. Freedom to focus on the people and activities that give meaning to your life instead of debts that don't belong to you. I'm Dr. Eli Morgan, and if you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing so you won't miss future guides on protecting your health and your financial security. Until next time, I wish you calm nights, clear confidence, and the peace of knowing that not every debt deserves your energy.